Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma viddushavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Today's topic is some misconceptions about Advaita Vedanta. Those who are familiar with Hindu philosophical tradition know that Advaita philosophy is the zenith, the highest reach of Indian philosophical systems. In Sanskrit, philosophy is called darshanam. Darshana actually means not a system of thought, but an experience, a realization of a great spiritual truth. That's a real implication of the Sanskrit word darshana. In popular language, it means seeing or realizing, making our own. And one interesting aspect about Advaita or non-dualistic system of philosophy is, it is not just a philosophy, but rather it is an experience. Of course, it has got a philosophical aspect. There are hundreds of important philosophical texts written on this subject. During the last 3,000, 4,000 years, even longer, if you count the Upanishads and the Vedic literature, the antiquity of Advaita philosophy, non-dualistic system, it goes to about 7,000 years, 5,000, 6,000 BC. But as I mentioned, it is the only philosophical system that tells you that words and books do not constitute the whole truth. You should go beyond books, you should go beyond philosophy, you should go beyond even belief, and you should reach the level of experience. In fact, the original exponent of Advaita philosophy, non-dualistic system, Shankaracharya himself proclaims in his works, Sutya Yuktya Swanubhutya, that's a Sanskrit term that he used, which means first you should read the scriptures and then you should analyze, use your own reasoning power, your own analytical power, and then you should make it your own through your own experience. So in that respect, Advaita is not a concept, not an idea, it is not just a doctrine, it is a matter of inner experience. But doctrines and ideas and concepts and philosophical ideas are certainly significant. They do have their relevance and importance because they help us to understand the philosophical dimension of non-dualistic system, and also it gives us an idea of the rational unassailability. Advaita non-dualistic system being a matter of our own real being cannot be assailed, cannot be criticized, because Shankaracharya says in his books, if you are denying your own identity, your own spiritual identity, you are killing yourself. Atmahana, that's a word used in the Upanishad, in the Ishavasya Upanishad and other Upanishads, and also in Shankaracharya's commentary. Atmanam Hanti iti Atmanam. Means somebody who denies himself, somebody who negates himself, somebody who denies his own or her own identity and experience. In other words, if we deny our own spiritual identity, you are actually committing a kind of spiritual suicide. It's a very interesting word is used here. In the interesting dialogue between Yajnavalkya and Maitreyi in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it's a very famous dialogue. A dialogue between a husband and his enlightened wife. It so happened that Yajnavalkya reached his middle age or maybe old age. He thought he had had enough of worldly life. He didn't need anything more. He was already known as the greatest philosopher of his times. But still, he wanted to renounce everything, and he proclaimed his intention to become a monk. And this proclamation he made to his own wife. And he said, well, I am going to give up everything. I am going to become a monk. But before going to the forest, before taking up the life of a full-fledged mendicant, a recluse or a hermit, I want to hand over to you all the ancestral properties. So he told Maitreyi, I am going to give you all my wealth. Then Maitreyi said, well, is this going to make me immortal? Is this wealth that you are offering to me going to make me immortal? Yajnavalkya said, no. It can help you only, wealth can only help you to achieve what wealth can achieve. So, whatever you can get in this world, that's all. But you cannot become immortal. Then Maitreyi said, well, you teach me that which you are seeking to achieve by giving up this wealth. And then Yajnavalkya told her, see, look here, I'm not going to the details of the dialogue, but those who are interested, you can see our own videos we have uploaded in the website, our Labor Day retreat classes based on this. But in essence, what Yajnavalkya told his wife was this. Well, you can become immortal when you realize that you are actually immortal. You are not this mortal body-mind complex. You are something that goes beyond the mortal physical frame or psychological build-up. You are something beyond that. You are the Atman. You have a spiritual identity, and that is immortal. Once you realize your own oneness with that spiritual identity, you also become immortal. This is the answer given. Now the question arises, in what way is Advaita going to help us in our everyday life? If you look at the well-known statement that is repeated again and again in the Upanishad literature, in the Vedic literature, Brahma Satyam Jagad Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Napara. It's a famous statement. Shankaracharya says, I'm going to summarize, I'm going to condense the essence of non-dualistic system or Advaita philosophy in just one statement, that is, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Napara. Brahman is the only reality, and this Jiva is actually, in its essence, it is non-distinct from Brahman, and all these external empirical worldly phenomena that you see around you, that you experience, that you are a part of, they're all coming and going. They are non-eternal. They are not immortal. This is the condensation of the essence of Advaita philosophy. Now, this may naturally give rise to many questions, many misconceptions. There is one word used here. Brahman is only reality. That we can understand. Brahman means that eternal, unchanging truth, that Atman, the transcendental spiritual identity of all of us. That is Brahman or Atman. And it is unchanging. In the Sanskrit technical language, you call Shadvigara, Tida, Trigala, Badhida, and Avasthatraya, Badhida. There are many criteria which I am not going to explain right now. I have explained in many other classes in this. Means Brahman is beyond all changes. It never comes into existence because it always exists. It never ceases to exist because it always exists. It doesn't grow or evolve or decay or fade away because it is unchanging. And again, it is beyond the triple dimensions of time, like past, present, and future, because it always exists without any change. So it is beyond time, and it is experienced without any change in the triple levels of human consciousness, like the waking state, dream state, and deep sleep state. So in this respect, this Atman, Brahman, is the eternal reality. That's our true nature. This is one important statement, very simple. The second expression is Jagad Mithya. Now, this you may find Jagad Mithya. Any text on Advaita philosophy, non-dualistic system, that you may read, you can find this. The world is unreal. Brahman is real. Brahman is only reality. The world is unreal. Now, this can lead to a lot of terrible misunderstandings. Terrible misunderstandings. It has caused misunderstandings not only in modern times, but even great men of ancient times. Ramanuja, who lived 250 years after Shankaracharya, Madhva, who came little later, and Vallabha, Nimbarka, many other Indian philosophers, and of course, much more common in modern times, they have the terrible misconception. Advaita tells you that this world is unreal. Now, can there be anything more ridiculous to say than that this world that you see in front of you is unreal? The bridge, the ocean, the bay, the roads, the cars, the trucks, the vehicles, the chairs, the hall, these all constitute this world, or unreal. Does Advaita say that this world is unreal in this sense? The answer is a strong no. Advaita doesn't say this world is unreal the way we understand it. What it says is this world is non-eternal. That's what it says. And you can very well understand. Even the chair on which you are sitting right in front of me, that chair didn't exist perhaps 20 years ago and may not exist maybe after 200 years. The chairs that you're sitting on right now were in the form of a tree 20 years ago. Somebody went to the forest, cut down wonderful trees, and you got these chairs and tables on which you are sitting now. Which means they were not chairs 20 years ago. They were trees. And those trees were seeds 200 years ago. And again, those seeds became trees. Like that, it goes on changing. So also, the iPhone you are using, it uses many things, many materials used. In fact, those materials have undergone changes when they took the form of an iPhone or any mobile phone. They were not mobile phones before they were manufactured in the factory. They were something else. What does it mean? They are subject to changes. So whatever is subject to changes is not unreal in the absolute sense, but they are not real in the absolute sense. Because if you want to call something real in the absolute sense, it has to be beyond all changes. It has to be unchanging. Is there anything in this world, in the phenomenal world, that is not changing, that is unchanging? Absolutely nothing. Even the universe, the cosmos, The galaxies, the stars, the suns, the moons, the planets, they also undergo changes. Maybe they undergo changes only once in several millions of years. But trees and mountains and valleys may undergo change maybe in a few hundreds of thousands of years. The body cells of the human system undergo changes much more frequently, as we all know. So the point is, Advaita tells you a simple truth, that what you actually see around you with your eyes, with your mind, together, that's how you see. Or you hear with your ears and mind, that's how you hear the sound and you come to know there's a car moving the streets. And what you perceive, what you understand by touching, because your mind and the sense of touch comes together, then you touch the chair or the book in your hands, you understand you have a book in your hand. So you smell the incense sticks, giving beautiful perfume, you smell when your mind and your sense of smell come together. So, or you taste, when the sense of taste and mind come together, you enjoy something that you're eating. So all these external phenomena that you understand and cognize using the mind and the five senses of perception, they are constantly changing. This everyone knows. Even if you ask these small little children going to primary schools, they also will tell you it's a fact. They also change, because maybe 5 years younger, they were playing in their home, they were in the kindergarten, now they are in the primary school. So that means everything is changing. And Shankaracharya tells you that whatever is subject to changes, please understand, it is not eternal. It is not real. If you want to use the capital letter R, it is not real in the absolute sense. But remember, it is not unreal in the absolute sense. If it were totally unreal, if you were totally, absolutely unreal, then you won't be talking about it. You won't be speaking about it. You won't be writing about it. No, this is a simple fact that Advaita tells you. The most terrible misconception about Advaita is that Advaita tells you this world is unreal. Advaita doesn't tell you the world is unreal. Advaita tells you that this world is relative. Relative means it is subject to changes. In fact, historically speaking, for the first time, this misunderstanding was cleared by Swami Vivekananda in one of his lectures that he delivered in London during his travels in England, where in Jnana Yoga lectures you find Vivekananda says, historically, Advaita was misunderstood because people started saying that Advaita tells you this world is unreal. Now, this is the philosophical aspect. But I want to say something else about it. So, I cannot give a scriptural, we call it a philosophical, metaphysical, theological picture of this great doctrine. But I shall just quote the 5 important definitions of mithyatva, or the word relativity doctrine, the doctrine of mithyatva. It means the doctrine that tells you that the world is mithya, in the sense the world is non-eternal. This idea was expressed by Shankaracharya so many times in all his books. Between Shankaracharya, that he lived in 8th century AD, up to 16th century AD, in about, let's say, about 800 years, a number of post-Shankarite philosophers emerged in Advaita school of philosophy, and they expounded this doctrine. And very often they emphasize this non-eternal nature of the world, which perhaps must have led to some misunderstandings and misconceptions among rival philosophers. So there was actually some kind of a dialectical warfare between different schools of philosophy during this period of almost 800 years. I am not going to enter that picture. In fact, I have given classes expounding Mandukya Upanishad, Mandukya Karika, and Mandukya, and of course Shankaracharya's Bhashya on both of these. There are many classes available in the website, homepage. If you go, you can see. But I want to underline one important point. There are 5 definitions of the doctrine of the world relativity. And they were expounded by great philosophers who appeared after Shankaracharya. Padmapadacharya, who wrote Panchapadika, he was a disciple of Shankaracharya. Then Panchapadika Vivarana was written by Prakashat Mayadi, who was actually a successor to this school of Vivarana school. And then there was Chitsukacharya, who wrote Tattwapratipika, who also came in Shankaracharya's lineage, and Ananda Bodhacharya, who came later. So they actually gave 5 definitions of the world relativity. Chronologically speaking, Padmapada said the world is indescribable, non-definable, inexplicable, because you cannot say this world is totally real, because it is changing. You cannot say it is totally unreal, because it is there in front of you. So how can you say it is real in the absolute sense? You cannot say. You cannot say it is unreal, because it is there, so you cannot say it is unreal. So it is called anigavachiniyatva. It means the non-definability, the indescribability. Sadasatta anadhikarnatvam va mithyatvam. This is a definition by Panchapadika Kara, the author of Panchapadika is called Padmapadacharya. Indescribability. After him, in his lineage, another philosopher came, and who actually wrote a commentary on Padmapada's book, that is Panchapadika Vivarana. He said, Pradipannau Badu Traigadika Nisheda Pradiyogitvam va mithyatvam, Jnana Nivartitvam va mithyatvam. These are 2 definitions by Prakashat Mayati, who was a follower of Padmapada, who was a disciple of Shankaracharya. So what he said, see, what is mithyata, what is relativity? You have to think of this well-known analogy in Advaita Vedanta. Suppose there is a dark room, not very dark, but somewhat dark. You can't see what is there in that room, but you can get a very, very clouded view. There is a piece of rope lying on the floor, and because there is not enough light, you mistake that rope for a snake. Now, when you bring light, the snake idea goes away, and you recognize it is a piece of rope. So actually, that snake never existed in the rope, the real snake. The real snake is only in your mind, in the form of memory, because you have seen this snake in the forest, and you mistook the snake to be the rope lying in front of you. So you superimposed, it's called adhyasa, smriti rupa, on that rope. So you think it's a snake. It's a wrong idea. So when you bring light, or you open the windows, when the light comes, the misunderstanding, the misconception goes away. You understand it's a piece of rope. Now, but in reality, the snake never existed in that rope. Either before you brought light, or after you brought light, or when there was not enough light, when you actually mistook the rope for a snake. So in all these 3 dimensions of time, the snake never really existed on a rope. It is only in your mind, it is only misconception, only wrong idea. Like that, whatever really never exists as absolute reality, but could be mistaken to be the absolute reality, that is mithyatva. Let us say any of us, in fact, before we study Advaita Vedanta, I know according to non-Advaitic, non-dualistic systems of philosophers, this world is real. because they think this world is real. If you tell them, well, the world undergoes changes, every physicist knows, every scientist knows, every child knows that whatever he sees, experiences in this world is changing. Everyone knows. But then, some of these philosophers, Advaita philosophers, non-Visita Advaita philosophers, tell you the world is real. Because for them, whatever is there in this world was created by God. And as such, it is a permanent entity. So, even if it's changing, they won't recognize changeability as a limiting condition. So, even if it is changing, it is as real as what is eternally real. So, this misunderstanding can happen to people who don't really think. But if you think you understand, what Advaita tells you is what any of us can easily relate in our own life. Everything is changing. So Advaita, in other words, is pure, simple common sense. Other definitions are there, for example, Swasraya Nishtha Atyanta Bhava Prayogitvam Va Mithyatvam by Chitsukacharya and Sad Viviktatvam Va Mithyatvam by Ananda Bhuta. I am not going to those details. Now, another important thing that I want to mention to you, what is the practical benefit of this Advaita philosophy? That's what I am going to emphasize. In fact, Advaita system of philosophy has a tremendous psychological value in modern times. You know, what are the characteristics of our times? Competition, complexities of the world, the extreme demands of energy and time, and the worship of the wealth of dollar, the worship of utilitarian values, the domination of utilitarian values. We judge everything on the basis of what practical benefits those things can give us. That's how we judge everything in this world. That's a problem. Now, and then another problem, if we don't succeed enough, we become worried and anxious. If we don't achieve what we want to achieve, it creates a lot of problems, tensions. If we lose our job, it creates tremendous anxieties and worries. There are people who do nothing other than sitting in a corner and worry, become anxious about totally unreasonable, totally irrelevant things. That's his age. The man may be very rich, sitting in a pile of dollars, the wealthiest man in the world, big CEO, but he may be take 4 pills for taking 4 hours of sleep every night. So that kind of life is certainly not something desirable. It is so unfortunate. So anxiety and worry, a feeling of insecurity, all these are the natural characteristics of modern times. If you can see any American Medical Association reports, anything that I go through them, but I don't want to quote the statistics because Vedanta should not emphasize too much on the data that you get from medical association reports. It may not be appropriate. But if you go through those reports, you find a huge percentage of the total population suffer from anxieties, worries, and insecurities. On the other hand, America is in many ways one of the most advanced, the most perhaps in some ways, countries in the world. And this is true also even in countries like Japan, Sweden, Switzerland, Denmark, which countries with a much higher index of happiness, which is a higher happiness index. The percentage of people who ought to be happy, but not necessarily always happy. The higher percentage of depression. So how is it that money, wealth and status, job security, medical insurance, social security, all these fail to give you a happy life? What's the problem? The problem is they are not enough to make our mind healthy. Your body may be healthy. In fact, the lifespan of many of the most advanced countries like Japan, Sweden, Switzerland, very high, much higher than that of the United States. But people are not in any way less unhappy in those countries. Now the point is, the problem of anxiety and worry are common in modern times. Advaita has got a remedy. Many people don't admit. If you go to India, Benares, other places, Sanskrit Pandits. In fact, I had time to be one among them for many years. Now it will be different. I'm giving a modern interpretation of what we Sanskrit Pandits normally talk about. I'm giving some kind of a modern connection to Advaita philosophy. The point is, if you actually can believe in the reality of the unreality of the world, it's a great psychological blessing. Because mostly people suffer from depression and anxiety and other related problems because they expect perfection, they expect permanence from this impermanent, imperfect world. They may know intellectually that everything in this world is impermanent, non-eternal, not everlasting. They know intellectually. In their mind, they may be reading books perhaps. But in actual life, when there is a slightest problem, they attribute permanence to that problem. Everything in this world is changing. The problem also may disappear, may change. That they forget. Instead, they attribute permanence to their problems. And when you foolishly believe that the problem you're facing is going to be there all your life, then you are in for trouble, because that's a road, that's a highway towards leading to anxiety and mental breakdown. So Advaita, on the other hand, tells you, remember, now you may have lost your job. You need not be anxious about it. You may get a job very soon. You may know that intellectually, but that knowledge doesn't help you when you become too anxious, when you become too worried about a job insecurity. So very often we become insecure mentally because we are not able to remember what we know intellectually. We are not able to bring what we know to the level of our emotional, everyday thinking and experience. So what really happens is, when people lose money in maybe stock exchange, they become too worried. The BP level goes up, diabetes goes up, stress level goes up. They take more pills, more medicines, and they slowly approach closer to their deathbed. Why should that be? If they know, well, stock markets are bound to fluctuate. Money is bound to be lost. Banks are bound to collapse. The world is bound to change. Similarly, your job is bound to be lost. You are bound to lose it. But because you may get back the job after some time, you may gain money again, the stock markets may go up again, and again may go down. So this changeability, this impermanence of everything in this world is what Advaita is talking about. You can imagine what a wonderful sense of pure common sense it is. It is everyone knows. So Advaita actually tells you to remember what you already know, but don't always succeed to make use of in your everyday life. That is pure, simple common sense. So in other words, it has got a tremendous psychological value. In fact, there are many other aspects about Advaita, many other misconceptions about God, karma, Ishvara, destiny, grace, human effort, free will. There are so many areas in which there are dozens of, the list can be much longer, of misconceptions with regard to Advaita Vedanta, which I may not get time to do full justice to right now. But I want to stress this important point, this important relevance of Advaita Vedanta to our times. Advaita Vedanta tells you that, look here, everything in this world, including your age, your bodily health, your psychological health, the money you have got in the bank, the job you are holding, in fact, the social security or maybe the medical insurance that you are having, all these are not going to be permanent. So remember that. Don't forget that. If you don't forget that, it is impossible for you to suffer from hypertension. It is impossible for you to suffer from anxiety and worry. So that is psychological value of Advaita Vedanta. Means the idea, the doctrine of the changeability or impermanence of the world and everything that exists in this world. So it is called Vyavaharika Satta, means the relative, the non-absolute. At the same time, doesn't mean that we should ignore the problems we are facing. Suppose you have lost your job, you should not try anymore to get a new job because job is not going to be permanent. Advaita doesn't say that. You do your best to get a job, a better job if possible, a much better well-paid job if possible, higher job if possible. You invest more money in the bank again, but remember that also may get lost, but not you may regain again, it can get lost. The stock markets go up and come down. So this everyone knows, every person knows, but is not able to elevate this reality, this experience into a philosophical doctrine with a great psychological relevance and value. That's what Advaita tells. Jagat Mithyatvam. So now the problem is this, very simple. Well, I can give an example. Suppose I read Aristotle, let's say Philo, Democritus, the great Neoplatonist, or even if I read the works of Augustine, The City of God, or Aquinas, if I read, let us say, in some kind of Indian vernacular. Or still worse, if I read Kant, Critique of Pure Reason, in Indian vernacular, and try to understand Kantian philosophy or German idealism, I will be losing everything. I will be missing everything. You know the reason? Because there is a problem of language. Indian vernaculars cannot do full justice by translating Kant and Hegel into Indian vernacular. It cannot do as much justice as, let us say, English. Latin and Greek may be better, but English may be better. That's because of language. Similarly, when a great Advaita doctrine, which is enshrined in Sanskrit language, when it is put in simple English translation by people who may not have studied from a traditional teacher, the problem is, suppose say Advaita tells you the world is unreal. What is the real implication of the unreality of the world in mainstream Advaita philosophy? The translator may not always know. That's a problem. The problem is not with the translator. It is not with the language, but it's a natural problem when you translate a great philosophical idea from one language, from one ancient language, into one modern language. It's a problem. Even if you read, let's say, Shakespeare, let's say in some kind of Oriental vernaculars, you won't be able to enjoy Shakespeare the way you can enjoy when you read him in the original English. I'm talking about a great work on fiction. In fact, some of the ancient philosophical books are still more difficult to translate, and they lose many of their real implications when you translate. That's why a lot of misunderstandings. Now remember, these misunderstandings are not confined to Western world. In fact, there are more people in India who have more misconceptions about Advaita Vedanta than anywhere else in the world. Ramanuja, Madhva, Vallabha, Nimbarka, there are many great Indian philosophers who lived in ancient times, who had terrible misunderstanding, who have more misunderstandings about Advaita Vedanta than many of us today have, fortunately. So the problem is, but in modern times, the problem is language. So remember, when Advaita tells us that the world is unreal, it is not telling you that this world doesn't exist, that this world that you're seeing in front of you actually doesn't exist. Advaita can and never says that, can never say that and never says that. The reason is, Advaita is actually a beautiful harmony of the highest idealism and the highest realism. It is realistic because it doesn't deny the empirical, the ontological value of everyday world. At the same time, it reminds you that this world, which has got an ontological value at the empirical level, doesn't have a permanent metaphysical value because it is subject to changes. That's the idea behind. So there is something beyond changes, because change cannot be conceived of without the background of something which is changeless. So that changeless reality is Atman. That's what Vedanta tells you. Now again, I'm coming to the previous subject that I just started. What about a response to what we see in this world? We should be active. We should respond to the problems of the world, which again is a mithya. We should not forget or be insensitive or forgetful or negligent towards our duties and responsibilities. But at the same time, we should do our work, do our best, but keeping in mind that, remember, this world is not absolutely real. So Sri Ramakrishna says, keep this Advaita knowledge in your pocket and you should bring it out. When you become too anxious, take it out. Anxiety gone. When you're too worried, when you become too worried, take out this Advaita. You should be put in some kind of a package, put in your pocket. The moment you get obsessed with the empirical world and all the problems and get crazy about it, then bring out this package of Advaita from your pockets. That's what Sri Ramakrishna says. And Vivekananda, to be more emphatic, he says, this world is mithya, fine, but make use of this world. So his statement is, the world is a gymnasium for us to work out our karmas. That's Vivekananda. Gymnasium is a place that we go to. Maybe every week, twice a day, we go and spend 1 hour at the most. We don't stay in a gymnasium. We go there because gymnasium is an instrument that helps us in some way, maybe to become healthier and stronger. That's all. But gymnasium is not a place where we have a permanent residential address. No. Like that, this world need not be our residential address. This world is a meeting place. Just as you travel in trains or in planes, you meet people, you talk with people, you interact very friendly. We have seen as soon as you have got your luggage from the carousel, the other man walks away as if he has never met you. And you also do the same. I don't mean to say that we should be insensitive, we should be detached, we should be cold, not at all. But whenever too much of obsessions, too much of extreme likes and dislikes create problems in the form of worries and anxieties, then we should remember that is the nature of this world, which is intrinsically, essentially impermanent and imperfect, according to Advaita. So, the ideal of, or the doctrine of the relativity, so you should not use the word unreality, because that again can create misunderstandings. So, as I mentioned earlier, Vivekananda was the first, historically speaking, the first Advaita teacher who actually specifically corrected and emphasized the point, don't use the word illusion to translate the word mithya. Use the word relativity. Relative, what is relative is something that exists, but certainly not absolute in that sense. So once we understand this, we can be realistic, we can look after the problems of the world, we can address the problems of our own life. At the same time, we need not get too much worried about it. We should use a kind of detachment, at the same time be active and involved. This idea has been stressed in so many different contexts in the Advaita literature. In the concept of witnessship, called mindfulness, actually is a hangover from the Advaita dialectical literature. Sakshi and all these terms are used in Vedanta, which of course later traveled to Buddhism and other systems of philosophy, which we may perhaps discuss on some other occasion. So thank you. Namaskar. And before I conclude, I want to make some very important announcements in this context. We are happy that we are being able to reopen these classes. So on Sunday evenings, our regular Sunday lectures will be in-person sessions, as we have today from the 17th of this month onwards, last Sunday onwards. But on Sunday evenings, there is an online class at 6 p.m. that is on Patanjali Yoga Sutras. Every Sunday, 6 p.m. in the evening. It will be a Zoom and YouTube session. So you can get the classes on Zoom and also on YouTube. And you can get links on our website homepage, San Francisco Vedanta Society's website homepage, svedanta.org. On Wednesday evenings, we have Vespers with meditation at 7:30 p.m. in this auditorium. On Friday evenings, a scripture class is held at the Old Temple at 7:30 p.m. We used to hold these classes on the Bhagavad Gita every Friday at 7:30 p.m. And we have already started giving in-person sessions of this Gita class on Fridays 7:30 p.m. And at present, our bookshop and library remain closed, and childcare is still not currently available during lectures. But still, you are most welcome to attend all the classes. Only point is, right now we are not in a position to open the library and bookshop, and the childcare we hope will be able to resume sometime, maybe within a few months. We have to wait a little longer till the vaccination situation improves among the young children. And then for the time being, for everyone's safety, we are still observing, keeping 6 feet of social distance. And in light of that protocol, there will be no greeting of the speaker in the auditorium after the lecture, nor will there be a question and answer session in Vivekananda Hall. We also will not pass the collection plate. However, if you would like to make an offering, a collection plate will be available on the cart at the door as you exit. And there is also a mounted collection box near the auditorium door in the foyer. We are so glad to finally welcome all of you to the temple. Your cooperation is welcome, and please remember, you should be fully vaccinated, you should wear a mask and maintain 6 feet of social distancing. So thank you. Namaskar. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Next Sunday, we will have the lecture Durga Puja. So please remember, next Sunday, the topic is Durga Puja. It will be a discussion of the fundamental principles of our puja and rituals that we perform as part of our religious tradition. Thank you. Namaskar.